So, you're dreaming of retiring early, right? Who is it? But there's always that one giant question that pops up. How in the world do you get your hands on your retirement money before you hit 59 and a half, without getting totally crushed by penalties? Well, today, we're going to crack that code. We're breaking down the keys to unlock that money and do it the smart way.
Okay, so just picture this. You've done everything right. You saved like crazy, you made all the smart investments, and you are so ready to say goodbye to the 9-to-5 grind, maybe decades ahead of schedule. But, and this is a big but, most of your beautiful nest egg is locked up tight in retirement accounts. The government has basically put a giant do not touch sign on it until you're almost 60. So, what's the move? What are you supposed to do?
Well, if you just try to grab that money anyway, bam, you get slammed with this number, 10%. That's the government's early withdrawal penalty. And believe me, it's there for a reason. They really don't want you touching that money for anything other than, a traditional retirement. And the real kicker? That 10% is on top of the regular income taxes you're already going to owe. Ouch. It feels like a huge wall, but there are ways around it.
All right, so how do we get around that nasty penalty? The good news is, there are a few special keys that can unlock your nest egg early. Let's dive into the most common strategies.
When you boil it all down, you've really got two main paths. Path number one is the simple route. You just bite the bullet and pay that 10% penalty. It's straightforward, no hoops to jump through, but you're guaranteeing a 10% loss right off the top. Path number two is something called a SEPP. This is basically your get-out-of-penalty-free card, but it comes with a catch. It has a bunch of super strict IRS rules and some pretty precise calculations. It's powerful, but you've got to follow the rules exactly.
So let's zoom in on this SEPP method, which you'll also hear called a 72T distribution. Now, when I say the rules are strict, I mean they are strict. First, you'd roll your funds into an IRA. Then you use an IRS formula to figure out your fixed annual withdrawal. And here is the absolute most critical part. You must take out that exact amount every single year. No more, no less. And you have to keep doing this for at least 5 years, or until you hit 59 and a half, whichever is longer. Make one little mistake, and all those penalties you worked so hard to avoid come crashing back, retroactively. So yeah, it's an amazing tool, but it's definitely a high-stakes game. Okay, so enough with the theory. Let's see how this stuff actually plays out in the real world. We're going to run a head-to-head race with a hypothetical early retiree and see which strategy really wins in the long run. So meet our hero for this little experiment, the fearless Fantiest. She grinds it out, saves like a champion for 15 years, and gets to retire at just 45 years old. Awesome, right? But now she has a challenge. She needs to make her investments cover all her expenses for the next 15 years, until she's 60. The specific strategy she uses is going to make or break her retirement.
And they're off. This is our starting line. Take a look at these numbers. The taxable and Roth accounts, they're starting out with just under 190 grand. But look at that traditional account. It's way out in front with almost $250,000. So why the huge difference? It's simple. Every single dollar in that traditional account went in before taxes. That means more money was working and growing for her right from day one. It's a massive head start.
All right, so let's fast forward 15 years. Our financist has been living her early retirement dream, withdrawing money every year. So, the big question is, who won the race? Which strategy left her with the most money for the rest of her retirement? I think the results might just surprise you.
And here we have it. The finish line at age 60. Wow. Just wow. The power of tax-deferred growth is just undeniable. Look at this. The taxable and Roth accounts ended up around $500,000. Not bad at all. But the traditional IRA strategies, they absolutely crushed it. Even the one where she just paid the 10% penalty left her with over $672,000. But the clear winner is the SEPP 72T method, preserving over $706,000. I mean, that is a night and day difference.
Okay, but a big number in an account is one thing. Let's get real for a second. What does this actually mean for your life? What we all really care about is how many years of freedom and spending money does that actually buy you?
This chart, this is where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. Using the taxable account, her money's all gone by age 76. But check this out. By using her traditional IRA and just paying the penalty, her money lasts until she's 86. That's a whole extra decade of life funded. And with the winning sex strategy, she's good all the way to age 90. That's a life-changing gain in financial security.
Let that just sink in for a moment. The difference between the best strategy and the most straightforward one could fund an extra 14 years of your life. 14 years. That's not a small number. That is the power of understanding how these rules actually work.
Okay, so what's the big takeaway here?
What does all this mean for you and your own planning? How do you turn this analysis into your personal winning strategy?
All right, let's break it down into a few key lessons. First, using tax-advantaged accounts like a 401k or a traditional IRA is a huge, huge advantage. It's almost always the best path, even if you plan to retire early. Second, don't let that 10% penalty scare you off. As we saw, even eating the penalty can leave you way, way better off than just using a taxable account. And finally, if you're willing to deal with the complexity, a method like the SEPP 72T can deliver the best results. It really just boils down to a trade-off. How much flexibility do you need versus how much planning are you willing to do?
So it turns out, those big locks on your retirement accounts, they aren't unbreakable after all. You just need to know which key to use. And now that you know the options, the only real question left is, how are you going to plan your escape?